Hello everyone, it's me, Nikki, and today I'm here with the books that I read in April. I read 3 books online and I finished my Owls, so I'm super excited about that. Let's start with the online books. The first one was from my library online, and it was A Court of Thorns and Roses. I gave it 3 stars. It was okay. I know what happens in the next 2, so I'm not going to read them because I thought this was actually a good ending. I don't really understand why the main character Tamlin suddenly became an asshole and Rhysand is suddenly the best thing since ever. I thought that was weird. So I'm not going to read them. As far as I'm concerned, it is a one-off book and it's perfect the way it is. It was okay. Yeah, the main character, Feyre, wasn't... She was okay. It was just an okay book. I'm glad I read it to sort of see what everything... the hype about it was, and it was okay. Yeah, but I don't plan on reading any more. The next book is let me find it. Madame Koska and the Imperial Brooch. I got this from NetGalley, and it is published by BHC Press. It is a mystery. I wrote a review for it on my website that I have just specifically for NetGalley reviews, and it's set before 1920s, so after World War One, and Madame Koska is an atelier, a haute couture designer, and she's Russian or knows Russian people, and a brooch disappears and suddenly she's drawn into this mystery, and lots of stuff happens that I can't really tell you about because it spoils the whole thing, but it was a good book. Yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. She sort of reminds me of Phryne Fisher, and it's that sort of era. It's like a cozy mystery cozy mystery book, but like in elite Russian circles. And yeah, there was a good detective in it, but I don't think nobody really wanted Madame Koska to figure it out. She just sort of had to because people were breaking into her place of work and where she lived, so it was sort of freaking her out. Yeah, I thought it was just a nice little book and I'd like to read more. The next one I got was The Phantom's Curse, also from NetGalley and published by BHC Press again. It is a YA book. Also, the review is on my website. I'll link them below if you really want to read them. It's an arc, and it comes out on June 11th. I think it still does. I know a lot of books have been pushed back, and movies have been pushed back, and I think some books have too. Anyway, it's an okay book. It's sort of like, to me, it sort of reads like a book for kids coming out of middle grade and into YA, because it is short and a lot of things happen. It would have been better if the book was longer or part of a series, because the setup is that Marianne, her brother, gets wrongfully imprisoned and the lord of the city wants her in exchange, and then with the help of her friends she rescues her brother, and that happens in like the first half. That's not even the whole book. And then other stuff happens that isn't the heist or the rescue. So it was a good book. I did like it. The main character, Marianne, was sort of oblivious that at least 2 guys liked her. There is a romance subplot, sort of, but not really. No, 3 guys like her. I'm off camera. 3 like her, and she's sort of like, I don't understand what this means. So I don't know if there's going to be a sequel, but it feels like there should be, or like it just should have been fleshed out a little bit more, but it was good otherwise. So yeah, I'll make sure to link my blog below if you really want to read it. And next we'll talk about the physical books I read, All My Owls. So the first one was Ashes of the Elements by Alice Clare. It's the second in the Hockenley mysteries. And Joss, I think it's Joss, Josse, the knight comes back to England to check out his new house and reacquaint himself with the abbess, because it's like a year, obviously, because it takes a while to get everywhere. And then there's a murder in the woods near the abbey. There is a map. So that's the abbey, and the murder happens out here in this forest. And the forest people are blamed. I think that means druids. They do make an appearance. I don't know if it is historically accurate, but they're there. And then weird stuff is happening, just sort of all over the place, and it's freaking everybody out. And the abbess and I think another person dies. Okay, I think so, yeah. Or at least, in a murder mystery, at least 3 people die. So 3 people might die in this. Maybe more. And it's just weird shit happening, and they're like, what the actual fuck? And the sheriff isn't the brightest. So Joss and Heloise solve the crime. There's lots of, I would say, red herrings almost, but they are explained. So I did like it. I liked the first one. I liked the second one. And I would like to read more of them. I'll put that. I didn't think that through. Next we have Murder at the Altar, the first Ellie Quick mystery by Veronica Healy. And I have to say, I wasn't sure about it in the beginning because Ellie, her husband has literally died like 2 days before this story starts. The funeral had just happened. Sorry, stop that. And like, so this is the flat, like, surface. Here's the altar, and here's her house. So that far apart, and she's literally just staring out of her window. And then she comes to find out that somebody died while she was looking out her window. And so everybody involved, from the cops to the bad guys, are 100% sure she knows something. But Ellie has no time for that because her husband died. People are bothering her about notes from a meeting he was in and on a computer, and she's never worked on a computer. And the thing is, she's like a typical wife of like a certain age where the husband has done everything forever and the wife does all the housework. And that didn't bother her until after her husband died, and she finally realized that she can learn how to work a computer. She can drive. She can talk to people. Like, the only two people I really didn't like were her daughter, who was a bitch, and her husband's aunt, who was a bitch. They pushed her around. They stole from her. And Ellie at the end, not even at the end, in the middle of the book, she finds out, like, her daughter is basically telling her, oh, you're going to move up with us and I'll sell you their house. So the daughter can get money. And she tries to do that, and Ellie shuts that down right quick. And she takes no nonsense from this guy who's in charge of selling the house, and she's just like, no. But she solves the crime in the end. She's got a neighbor who's a computer whiz who has a husband, and they're sort of involved as well because the guy who died knew the neighbor when they were kids. But yes, it was a very good book, and I really enjoyed Ellie and watching her grow as a person. Even though she's older, she like, I can, all that stuff I said, and she can be an independent woman and tell her family to go fuck themselves. And I also really liked, and this happens pretty early on, like in the first chapter, I think, the bad guys are watching her from day one because they think she saw something. She doesn't know it, and all this stuff happens, and it's sort of slapstick, and it's fabulous. I really liked it, and I think I will continue this series. We're gonna do one for last for sure. Next is Wolfheart by Richard A. Knack. It's part of the World of Warcraft series, as you can tell. It is about, so cataclysms happened. Basically, the world that this is set in has been ripped apart by Deathwing, the big bad dragon, and it's completely changed everything. And the Alliance is coming together to decide whether the Worgen, which are basically werewolves, should come back into the Alliance. Well, they're Gilneans, but they're all Worgen. It makes sense in the game. And this guy, Varian, is adamantly against it because of shit that's happened before. And it's about Varian, but it's also about stuff leading up to, like, not even the politics really, but what's happening in this one zone, Ashenvale, and how that even leads into more cataclysm in the game. So, we'll take that first because it's real easy. The leader of the Horde, Garrosh Hellscream, is a dick, and he decides that Ashenvale, which is owned or whatever by the Night Elves, needs to be his because it has a ton of trees that the Night Elves aren't doing anything with. But he doesn't understand that Night Elves don't cut down trees willy-nilly. They use them and they feel the trees and all that stuff. Oh, there's a third thing, which we'll also get to. And so he decides to invade Ashenvale, and it half works. But in the game, nobody really owns it, so it doesn't quite work. The other thing, which isn't Varian, is in Darnassus, the Night Elf city, there are Night Elves and High Elves, which can do magic. Night Elves can't do, well, they can, whatever. But the Night Elves don't really do magic, like fire and blizzard and all that stuff. They do druid healing earth magic, or moon magic. So these high elves are back. Not everybody's happy because of stuff that happened a millennia ago, and they're getting murdered left, right, and center. And it has two famous, Maeve Shadowsong, who was Illidan's keeper. Illidan is Malfurion's twin brother. Malfurion is a badass druid, and his wife is Tyrande, who is a badass warrior priestess. That doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you know World of Warcraft. So Maeve and her brother Jared figured that out, and then finally Varian, he okay before the game first came out in World of Warcraft 1.0, when you could get to level 60, Varian was not in the King of Stormwind. He was not there. It was his little son Anduin. And then I think the whole thing, to wrap it up, was you found out that at some point he'd been kidnapped and like bonked on the head, and he's forgotten who he was, and he was made to be a gladiator who they called Logosh. And then he remembered who he was. And then Burning Crusade happened, Wrath of the Lich King, and Cataclysm. Don't worry about it. And he's still been an angry son of a bitch since then. And come to find out, this is told to you in the first chapter, because Tyrande gets a vision. Varian is the key to beating the Horde for Cataclysm, because he is Logosh, which is the Horde word for Goldrin, who is a wolf god thing. And Goldrin has picked Varian to be his avatar, so to speak. There's even a little picture in here. Those are the Worgen. That's Varian, and behind him is Goldrin. And that's what that's about. It's about Varian finding his wolf heart and coming to terms with all the shit he's been through, and he does, and it's great. I loved it because I love World of Warcraft. I'm sad I'm not playing it, but I gotta stick to my guns, and I don't have the money. I really liked it. I like seeing all the characters. One of my favorites, Velen, he's a Draenei. They're like space goats. And he's old as fuck, and he's like the wisest motherfucker in the room at all times. And he shows up, and he's fantastic. One thing made me mad, though, is they're having this summit, or they're having a dinner party before the summit, and Velen shows up, and Malfurion's like, "We thought you left." And I'm like, Burning Crusade happened, which is when you got your space goats. Then Wrath of the Lich King happened, and the space goats were still here. They didn't just fucking leave. It's like, did you even play the game, bro? No? Okay. But if you like World of Warcraft, you will like this book. I spent a very long time talking about that because nobody knows anything about World of Warcraft. Whatever. Next we have Masks by Patricia Briggs. Apparently this was her very first book, which I didn't know. But I did like it. It is about Aralorn, right there, who is a noble in a different part of the country or the world, and this is Wolf, her wolf companion, who is a shapeshifter, and they are going to fight the powerful sorcerer Jeffrey Amagi. I think that's how you say that. Because he's a bastard who's killing people. He kills children, so that is, I'm going to tell you that as a spoiler because it's not pretty. And he's somehow using his magic to charm everybody in the whole world to believe that he is a good guy, and he is not a good guy. He kills, oh god, where is the guy? there's a guy who's in charge of the place. Mir? Yeah, Mir. His parents get killed, and he's the king of, like, the one place in the world where magic isn't looked down upon. And so they're sort of, like, immune almost to all of this stuff. But it's good. I did like it. There was a part near the end where Arelorn is told something, and it's pretty obvious to me what she should have done. But then she's like, and she goes someplace without really doing what she's told, and then she comes back, and the person who told her is like, you didn't do what I told you. Go back and do what I told you. And it was like, it was kind of obvious what they told you to do. So, yeah, and then her and Wolf end up together. Because it's also a romance. But I liked it. I thought it was interesting. There's apparently a sequel. I don't know if I'll read that. We'll find out. But I do want to read, her Mercy Thompson stuff. Okay. Almost done. Oh god, this is a long video. My longest one. Next, we have The Four Feathers by A.E.W. Mason. This was written in, let's see if it's 1902. So, and it's been made into a couple movies. The last one was 2002 with Heath Ledger. So I am gonna do some spoilers. It is about, I mean, it's not even a spoiler, it's like on the back of the book. Harry Feversham is wealthy, he's in the army, and he has a lovely fiancée, Athene, I think is how you say that, and he's got some friends, he's got a best friend sort of, Durham, and 3 kind of other friends. And when he's a kid, he hears tales of cowardice, and he's like 9 or 10, and ever since then, he's basically terrified he's going to be a coward when he goes into battle. So, he gets orders to go to the Sudan, and he resigns his commission. Like, he was kind of going to anyway, because he wanted to marry Athene. And 3 of his friends figure out why, and they send him white feathers in front of Athene, and she wants to know why, and he tells her, and she literally pulls a feather off of her van and gives it to him. And it's like, we're not engaged anymore. And so Harry wants to redeem himself. So what does the son of a bitch do? He goes to fucking Africa, okay? And embarks on an epic quest. He saves one guy from a prison, which was like a harsh prison. One guy dies before he can do anything, and the 3rd guy, he gives letters from some famous general, colonel, whatever. But he basically goes through hell. Yeah, but he's a coward. Okay. I mean, that's probably the irony of the story. And then there's also stuff involving Athene and his friend Durham, who's blinded. And Durham's always loved Athene, and now that Harry and Athene aren't together, he goes, it's my chance. And she's only doing it because he's blind. And then he figures it out, and it all ends up happily ever after. But I just was like... And then she, like, takes back her feather, and the others take back their feathers, except for the dead guy, but whatever. Because he proved himself, and I'm just like, what the hell? And then he goes back to her. He wants to go back to her. I was so mad. I'm like, okay, it's supposed to be a lovely romance, but why would you go back to her? I would never. Ugh. But whatever. It was good. There was some action, like, and the romance stuff wasn't overly romanced. So yeah, I really did like it. They're pretty short chapters, and it moves at a quick pace. And I think in all the movies they say that Harry saved Durrance after he went blind, but I don't think they ever stated that in the book. It might have just been an assumption, and that's how he got his fourth feather back. But yeah, it was a good book. Historically accurate because it's set not that far from 1902. They've got a little timeline here. Yeah, I think it's set in like the 1800s or 1890s, so it's not that far away. So whatever he's talking about in the Sudan is accurate. There's obviously racism towards the Arab people and black people, so beware of that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this if you've seen the movie, or even if you haven't, read it. And next, finally, I should say, we have the book that I think I finished my Owls, but technically I did not finish this book, but I read to the point where, because it was for read a book about wizards, and I read a point where wizards happened, so I'm going to count it. It is my first official DNF. I DNF'd it on Goodreads. It's my first official. I'm very proud of myself. And it is A Spell for Chameleon by Piers Anthony. I'd read reviews and they were like, how he treats women are garbage. And I was like, okay. Because other reviews said it wasn't that bad. So I thought I'd give it a chance. And it's not awful the way women are talked about, but it's not great. Like, Bink has no magic, and he's in love with, what's her face? Sabrina, who has magic, and he's trying to get magic to be with her, and he can't, and he's exiled, and she won't go with him, so he's mad about that. And then along the way, he meets a female centaur who helps him, and he grabs her boobs. And he's not really sad about it, and it's not a great scene. And then the worst one for me is, there's two. He meets a guy, he saves a guy, and they meet a girl, and this guy is not trusting the girl, and he basically says all women are awful and you should never get married. And this woman is like, shut up, and he goes, no, and then Bink doesn't say anything, and it's not great. That guy is not great. And then for me, the worst one is he meets a female mage illusionist, and apparently if you are a woman, they're following medieval rules. If you're a woman, you can't be the king or queen, and the king in this world is old and weak and garbage. And she wants to marry Bink so she can be the real power behind the throne. And he says no, and he sticks to it, but Bink says, and then good magician Humphrey also say, why isn't she married? Like, bro, she's a powerful witch. Why the fuck does she need to be married? And that was like the last straw for me, and I couldn't take it anymore. I don't know if it gets any better. I'm never gonna find out. I was just like, why does she need to be married? Why can't she just be a badass? She doesn't need a man. So I'm going to give away that book so somebody else might read it and appreciate it. So that's why I guess I didn't technically finish my Owls, because I DNF'd, but I did read enough to see magic happen, so I think I finished my Owls. And at 30 minutes almost, that is what I read in April. I kind of want to say May. I know. I'm already thinking about the next book video I'm doing. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. And I'll see everybody later. Goodbye.